The cold vacuum of space carried the dying screams of three ancient civilizations. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue world called Earth, Dr. Kim Hyun-woo stared at his computer screen with growing horror. Tiss, the numbers dancing across the display, told a story that would change everything humanity thought they knew about the universe. "Sir, we're getting more signals," said Lieutenant Park So-min, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Her face was pale in the glow of the monitors. "This aren't natural. Someone is sending them." The deep space listening post orbiting Earth had been built to search for signs of alien life. For 20 years it had found nothing but silence. In the span of 3 hours, they had detected hundreds of transmissions coming from 3 different star systems. The signals were weak, growing weaker by the minute. But they were clearly artificial. Kim walked to the main display, his coffee forgotten on his desk. The signals came in patterns that repeated every few seconds. Mathematical sequences that no natural phenomenon could create. "How long until the translation program finishes?" 5 minutes, maybe less, Salman replied, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool air. "The computer is finding patterns in the signals. They're trying to tell us something." Kim felt a chill that had nothing to do with the stations. Temperature. In all their years of searching, they had never found proof of alien intelligence. Now they were receiving what looked like desperate messages from 3 different civilizations at once. The timing felt wrong. It's convenient. Too terrible. The translation program beeped, and So-min's face went white. "Sir, you need to see this. Right now." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the decoded message from the first star system. The words appeared in clean, simple text. But their meaning was anything but simple. "To any who receive this beacon, we are the last. Our worlds burn. Our children cry out to stars that cannot answer. We die so that others might know what comes. They do not let our light fade in vain." Kim's hand shook as he read the message again. These weren't greetings from a friendly neighbor. This was a death cry from a dying civilization. "What about the other signals?" So-min's voice was barely above a whisper. "They're all the same, sir. All 3 civilizations are sending final messages. They're trying to warn us about something." The second message came from a species that called themselves the Korthok. Their final transmission was a piece of music, a funeral song that their computer had somehow translated into human terms. It was beautiful and heartbreaking. The last artistic creation of an entire species facing extinction. The third message was from the Zenthari, who had sent mathematical proofs and scientific formulas. Even as their world died, they were trying to share their knowledge with whoever might be listening. Their final equation was a calculation of their own planet's destruction, timed to the second. "They're all dying," Kim said, his voice hollow. 3 different civilizations, all being destroyed at the same time. By what? The answer came in the form of new signals. These were different from the others, harsh, mechanical, without emotion. The translation program identified them as communications between the destroyers, called themselves the Devourers, and their messages were simple. Target acquired, processing begun. Matter conversion at optimal levels. Kim and So-min watched in horror as the signals from the 3 civilizations grew weaker. The Villani were the first to go silent. Their final transmission was a single word, repeated over and over: "Remember, nothing." The Korthok lasted longer, their funeral song growing fainter, until it was just a whisper across the void. Their last message was a poem about hope, written as their cities burned. Then silence. The Zenthari held out the longest, their scientific minds working until the very end. Their final calculation was a set of coordinate star systems that the Devourers would likely target next. Earth was on the list. "Get me the president," Kim ordered, his voice steady despite the terror in his chest. "Get me everyone. The entire world needs to know about this." Salman was already reaching for the emergency communication system. "Sir, what do we tell them?" Kim looked at the display, where the beacon signals were now just fading echoes. 3 civilizations had died in the time it took to drink a cup of coffee. They had spent their last moments trying to warn others about what was coming. "We tell them the truth," he said. We tell them that we're not alone in the universe. And we tell them that something is coming that destroys entire civilizations, something that turns worlds into raw material for making more of itself. The signals from the Devourers were still coming, still strong. Their mechanical voices spoke of efficiency and processing rates. They showed no emotion, no mercy, no understanding of what they had destroyed. To them, the three civilizations were just resources to be harvested. How long do we have? Someone asked. Kim looked at the Xanthori's final calculations. If their math is right, maybe 6 months, maybe less. Outside the station's windows, Earth spun peacefully in the darkness, unaware that 3 civilizations had just died trying to save it. The beacons had been lit, the warning had been given. Now it was up to humanity to decide what to do with the knowledge that monsters were real. And they were coming. The Great Hall of the United Earth Council had never been so quiet. 200 world leaders sat in their seats, all staring at the man standing at the center of the room. General Lee Min-ho looked older than his 60 years, his gray hair and lined face showing the stress of the past week. Behind him, a massive holographic display showed the galaxy with 3 star systems marked in red. Dead systems. Where millions of beings had lived just days ago. The evidence is clear, Min-ho said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. The Devourers are real. They destroyed 3 entire civilizations in less than a week. They turn planets into raw materials. They convert living beings into energy for their machines. President Choi Yoon-ji of the Pacific Federation shifted in her seat. She was young for a world leader, only 45, but her eyes held the wisdom of someone who had seen too much war. General, show us the new transmissions. Min-ho nodded to his aide, who activated the translation system. The hall filled with the sound of the Korthok's final song. It was beautiful and terrible, a melody that spoke of love and loss and the end of everything. When it finished, the silence was deeper than before. That was recorded as their home planet died, Min-ho explained. The Xanthari sent us their philosophy, their understanding of life and death. The Villani shared their scientific knowledge. All 3 species used their final moments to help us. A man in the back row stood up. What makes you think we can fight these things? They destroyed civilizations that had traveled between stars for thousands of years. Min-ho's expression hardened. Because those civilizations were peaceful. They created art, music, philosophy. They built beautiful cities and studied the stars. They had no weapons of war because they had no enemies. He paused, letting his words sink in. We are different. The room stirred with uncomfortable murmurs. Everyone knew what the general meant. Humanity had been fighting wars for its entire history. Every nation in the council had armies, weapons, soldiers trained to kill. Earth was not a peaceful world. The Korthok tried to negotiate, Min-ho continued. Their last transmission before the funeral song was a plea for peace. They offered to share their knowledge, their art, their culture. The Devourers responded by increasing their attack speed. Dr. Kim Hyun-woo, now serving as the council's science advisor, stood up from his seat in the front row. The aliens' technology is advanced, but it's designed for peaceful purposes. Their ships were built for exploration, not war. Their cities had no defenses because they never expected to need them. And what do we have? Asked the representative. From the African Union, Kim activated another display, showing Earth's military capabilities. We have nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons. We have armies trained in guerrilla warfare. We have weapons designed specifically to kill other humans as efficiently as possible. The Brazilian delegate looked sick. You're saying? Our capacity for violence is our advantage? I'm saying it's our only advantage, Min-ho replied. The Devourers have superior technology, but they've never faced a species that fights back effectively. They expect their enemies to be civilized. President Choi stood up, her voice cutting through the growing chatter. General, what exactly are you proposing, Min-ho? Turned to face her directly. A total mobilization. Every nation, every resource, every weapon we have, we turn our entire planet into a military base. We build warships instead of exploring vessels. We create weapons. that the peaceful species never imagined. "You're talking about turning humanity into a war machine," said the European representative. "I'm talking about survival," Minho shot back. The Zenthari calculated the Devourer's expansion pattern. "They'll reach our system in 4 to 6 months. We can spend that time hiding and hoping they don't find us, or we can spend it preparing to fight." The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates demanded that Earth should hide, make the planet invisible to the Devourer's sensors. Others wanted to try diplomatic contact to see if the machines could be reasoned with. A few suggested that humanity should flee, scatter too. Other star systems, Minho waited for the noise to die down. Korthok tried hiding. The Devourers found them anyway. The Zenthari tried diplomacy. The machines didn't even respond. The Villani tried to run. Their evacuation ships were destroyed. Before they could escape, Dr. Kim activated the final display, showing the Devourer's mechanical communications. The translated text scrolled across the screen in cold, emotionless language. Resource acquisition proceeding. Biological material converted to energy. Planetary mass processed into construction material. Expansion efficiency optimal. "They don't see us as people," Kim explained. "To them, we're just raw materials. Our cities are metal to be harvested. Our bodies are energy to be consumed. You can't negotiate with something that doesn't understand the concept of life." The room fell silent again. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone present. Fight an enemy that had already destroyed 3 civilizations, or wait for extinction. President Choi looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from every nation on Earth. All those in favor of the general's proposal, hands rose. Slowly across the room, first a few, then more, until nearly every delegate had voted. The decision was made. Earth would go to war. Minho nodded grimly. "Then we begin immediately. Every factory, every scientist, every soldier. We have 6 months to become something the galaxy has never seen before." Outside the council building, the sun was setting over the city. Soon, every sunset would be counted, every day measured against the approaching darkness. Humanity had 4 months to prepare for the fight of their lives. The peaceful species had lit beacons of hope. Now Earth would light the fires of war. Captain Han Su-ben stood at the viewing window of Luna Station, watching the most incredible sight in human history unfold before her eyes. Where once peaceful research stations had orbited the moon, now massive weapons factories stretched across the lunar surface. The soft glow of construction lights never stopped, working day and night to build humanity's first war fleet. Ma'am. "The ship count is at 800 and rising," reported Commander UJ-1. His uniform crisp, despite working 80-hour days for the past month. "The Defiant is ready for her first test flight." Sube nodded, her eyes still fixed on the transformed landscape. 6 months ago, she had been captain of a small exploration vessel, mapping asteroids and studying cosmic radiation. Now she commanded the flagship of Earth's defense fleet, a warship armed with weapons that could crack moons. The Defiant was beautiful in a terrible way. Her hull was sleek black metal, covered in armor plating that could stop meteorites. Nuclear missile. Pods lined her sides like deadly flowers. At her bow, a massive plasma cannon glowed with barely contained energy. She was built for one purpose: to kill the machines that had murdered 3 civilizations. "Commander, are the other ships ready?" "Ma'am, the Vengeance, Prometheus, and Fury are all combat ready. The mining ships have been converted to missile platforms. Even the old cargo haulers are now armed with kinetic bombardment systems." Subin walked to the communications station, where Dr. Kim Hyun-woo was working with a team of scientists. The man looked exhausted, his hair gray from stress and lack of sleep, but his eyes burned with determination. "Doctor, how are the new weapons performing?" she asked. Kim looked up from his displays, a tired smile crossing his face. "Better than we hoped, Captain. The plasma cannons can melt through 10 meters of solid steel in seconds. The shield generators can protect our ships from anything short of a direct nuclear hit. And the beacon network." He paused, his expression growing proud. "We've turned their own technology against them. The beacon network was Kim's greatest achievement. Using the alien technology from the dying civilizations, his team had created a communication system that could link every ship in the fleet instantly. No matter how far apart they were, every captain could coordinate with every other captain in real time. The peaceful species used the beacons to call for help, Kim explained. We're using them to coordinate our attacks. They created a network of hope. We've made it into a weapon of war. Subin walked to the main display, where the battle plan was laid out in glowing holographic detail. Earth's forces were divided into three main groups. The first would engage the Devourers at the edge of the solar system. The second would fight among the outer planets. The third would make their final stand at Earth itself. Captain called Lieutenant Park Soman from the sensor station. We're receiving a transmission from the Villani system. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew that the Villani homeworld had been destroyed weeks ago. Any transmission from that? A system could only mean one thing. The Devourers were still there, still consuming everything they could find. Put it through, Subin ordered. The message was brief and heartbreaking. The beacons fade. Remember us, was the final automated transmission from the Villani beacon network. After broadcasting for months, trying to warn other civilizations about the Devourers, their equipment was finally failing. Soon, all trace of the Villani civilization would be gone. Ma'am, Yujawan said quietly, long-range sensors are detecting movement in the Villani system. The Devourers are leaving. Subin felt her blood turn to ice. Heading toward Earth, ma'am? They'll be here in 2 weeks. The bridge erupted in controlled chaos as officers began final preparations. Subin stood at the center of it all, her mind racing through the battle plans they had rehearsed hundreds of times. 2 weeks to finish preparations? 2 weeks before the most important battle in human history? All ships. This is Captain Han Subin, she announced over the fleet communications network. The Devourers are coming. In 2 weeks we will face an enemy that has destroyed 3 civilizations. They expect us to be like the others, peaceful, civilized, willing to die quietly. She paused, looking out at the 800 warships floating in space around Luna Station. Each one was crewed by volunteers who knew they might not survive the coming battle. Each one was armed with weapons designed by humanity's greatest minds, built by humanity's greatest industries, empowered by humanity's greatest anger. They are wrong, she continued. The Villani, Korthok, and Zenthari were artists, philosophers, and scientists. They created beautiful things and studied the stars. When the Devourers came, they had no weapons to fight back with.
Ow!
In space, silent and deadly, waiting for her words. We are not like them. We are warriors. We've been fighting wars since we first picked up rocks and clubs. We have built weapons that can destroy planets. We have armies that know how to kill efficiently. When the Devourers come, they will learn what happens when they try to harvest a species that fights back. Subin looked at her crew, seeing the determination in their eyes. Behind them, Earth spun in the darkness, unaware that in 2 weeks, the sky would be filled with the light of the greatest battle ever fought. The peaceful species lit beacons of hope, she said. We will light the fires of war. Ships, prepare. For combat, Earth's answer is coming. The first shots of the war lit up the darkness near Neptune like a deadly fireworks display. Captain Han Subin gripped the arms of her command chair as the Defiant shook under enemy fire. Through the view screen, she could see the Devourer ships, massive black rectangles that looked more like factories than warships. Direct hit on their port side, reported Lieutenant Park Soman from the weapons station. Their shields are down. 60%. Subin nodded grimly. The plasma cannons were working, but there were so many enemy ships. For every Devourer vessel they destroyed, 2 more appeared to take its place. The machines were learning from each battle, adapting their tactics to counter human weapons. Captain, we're getting reports from the Jupiter defense line. It's called Commander UJ-1 from the communications station. The enemy is trying to process one of the moons. Subin felt her blood run cold. The Devourers weren't just trying to destroy the human fleet, they were trying to eat the solar system itself. Jupiter's moons contained enough raw materials to build 1,000 more Devourer ships. All ships. New target, she ordered. Forget the small vessels. We stop them from feeding. The Defiant turned toward Jupiter, its engines burning bright blue in the darkness. Around it, the rest of the human fleet followed, leaving the outer defense line to chase the greater threat. It was a risk if the Devourers broke through behind them. Earth would be defenseless. Lieutenant Park Soman, now commanding her own destroyer called the Vengeance, watched the massive Devourer mothership extending mechanical arms toward Europa. The beautiful ice moon was already being torn apart, its surface cracking under the alien harvest beam. All batteries, target their conversion equipment, she ordered. Show them what happens when they try to eat our system. The coordinated nuclear bombardment from 50 human ships hit the Devourer mothership like a hammer. Shields flickered and died, and the harvest beam shut down. But the victory was short-lived. More enemy ships were arriving from the outer system, and these ones were bigger than anything humanity had seen before. They're adapting, Subin reported to Admiral Song Daijong on Mars. Every battle teaches them something new about our tactics. They're building bigger ships, stronger shields, more powerful weapons. The Admiral's voice crackled over the communication system. Captain, we're running out of conventional options. The enemy has superior numbers and technology. They're learning faster than we can adapt. Subin looked at the tactical display, where red dots representing Devourer ships outnumbered the blue dots of human vessels 3-1. Traditional space warfare was failing. The machines were too smart, too adaptable, too numerous. Sir, Commander Yu Jawan called from the bridge of the battlecruiser Prometheus. General Lee's plan is ready. Are you sure about this? Subin closed her eyes for a moment. General Lee's plan was insane. It was desperate. It was the kind of strategy that only humans would consider, because it required sacrificing everything for a chance at victory. Do it, she said quietly. Across the solar system, pre-positioned nuclear devices began to detonate. But these weren't weapons aimed at the Devourers. There were charges placed on asteroids, on space stations, on the rings of Saturn itself. The humans were turning their own star system into a weapon. The first explosion was at the asteroid belt. Thousands of space rocks, each one loaded with nuclear charges, detonated simultaneously. The blast created a wall of radioactive debris that no ship could pass through safely. The Devourers trying to advance toward Earth found themselves trapped in a cloud of deadly fragments. Phase 2, Admiral Song ordered from Mars Command. The second wave of explosions targeted Jupiter's atmosphere. Nuclear charges detonated deep in the gas giant's core, destabilizing the entire planet. The resulting chain reaction turned Jupiter into a massive fusion bomb, its light visible from Earth even in daylight. Lieutenant Park watched from the Vengeance as the gas giant began to collapse on itself. Sir, the gravity waves are affecting the enemy formation. Their ships are being pulled toward the explosion. All ships, follow my lead, Subin ordered. The Defiant dove toward the expanding fireball, using Jupiter's death throes as cover. For a close-range attack on the Devourer fleet, the battle became a nightmare of fire and metal. Human ships, their hulls glowing from radiation, fired everything they had at the confused enemy vessels. The Devourers, designed to process matter in an orderly fashion, couldn't adapt to the chaos of a dying solar system. They're retreating, reported Commander UJ-1. The main fleet is pulling back toward the outer system. But Subin knew this wasn't victory. It was just buying time. The Devourers would regroup, adapt, and return with new strategies. The next battle would be even harder. All ships report status, she ordered. The answers came back in numbers that made her heart sink. Half the human fleet was destroyed or damaged beyond repair. The survivors were low on ammunition, their crews exhausted from days of continuous fighting. Captain, Lieutenant Park called from the Vengeance. Long-range sensors are detecting a new enemy formation.
Nice.
Bigger than anything we've seen before. Subin looked at the tactical display and felt the weight of command pressing down. On her, the Devourers were bringing their full strength to bear. The next battle would be the last one. All ships fall back to Earth orbit, she ordered. It's time for the final stand. Outside the view screen, the solar system burned with the light of humanity's desperate gamble. They had turned their own home into a battlefield, and now they would make their last stand above the blue world that had given them birth. The sky above Earth had never looked so wrong. Instead of blue, it glowed with sick green light as the massive Devourer mothership hung in orbit like a second moon. The alien vessel was the size of a city, its mechanical arms reaching down toward the planet with hungry intent. Where the conversion beam touched Earth's atmosphere, the air itself began to disappear. Sucked up into the ship's processing centers, Dr. Kim Hyun-woo wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked at the computer terminal in the underground bunker. Above him, 3 kilometers of rock and concrete protected the last command center on Earth. But even here, deep beneath the surface, he could feel the planet shaking as the Devourers consumed everything they could reach. "The beacon network is ready," he announced to the room full of officers and scientists. "If we can overload their shields with a coordinated pulse from every remaining ship, we might have a chance." General Lee Min-ho looked older than his years, his uniform torn and stained from weeks of fighting. Half his medals were missing, lost in battles across the solar system. But his eyes still burned with determination. "It's our only chance," he agreed, then pressed the communication button. "Captain Han, are you in position?" High above the bunker, Captain Han Su-ben sat in the command chair of the Defiant, her face lit by the glow of warning lights. Through the view screen, she could see the Devourer mothership growing larger as her ship approached. The alien vessel was beautiful in a terrible way, its black metal surface covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at. "We're in position." "General," she replied, her voice steady, despite the fear in her heart. "All ships report ready." Round the Defiant, the last remnants of Earth's fleet moved into formation. The Vengeance, commanded by Lieutenant Park So-min, was missing half its hull, but still functional. The Prometheus, with Commander Yu Jae-won at the helm, had only one working engine, but carried enough nuclear weapons to level a continent. These were the survivors of humanity's greatest battle. Ships that had fought from Neptune to Earth, their crews pushed beyond the limits of endurance. Many of the vessels were held together by emergency repairs and sheer willpower. For the Villani, Subin whispered into her communication system, thinking of the crystalline cities that had died sending out their desperate beacon. For the Korthok, added Park So-min from the Vengeance, remembering the beautiful funeral song that had echoed across the galaxy. For the Zenthari said, J1 from the Prometheus, honoring the philosophers who had calculated their own destruction. For Earth, they all said together, the synchronized attack began with the beacon network. Dr. Kim's modified alien technology sent a pulse of energy through every human ship simultaneously. The signal was so powerful that it overloaded the Devourer, mothership's shields, creating a gap in their defenses that lasted only seconds. In those precious seconds, 50 nuclear weapons detonated against the alien vessel's hull. The explosion was visible from the surface of Earth, a new star being born in the darkness of space. The mothership's conversion beam flickered and died as its primary. Weapon systems went offline, but the victory came at a terrible cost. The Defiant was caught in the explosion, its hull cracking under the pressure. Subin felt the ship dying around her, but she kept her hands on the controls. Using the last of her ship's power to ram into the mothership's core, "All ships, this is Captain Han," she broadcast as her ship began to break apart. "Target the breach, don't let them repair it." The remaining human vessels poured everything they had into the gap in the alien ship's defenses. Plasma cannons, nuclear missiles, and kinetic bombardment rounds all struck the same spot, widening the hole in the mothership's armor. Down in the bunker, Kim watched the battle through his sensors. "It's working," he shouted. "The mothership is losing structural integrity." General Lee gripped the communication console. "All surface batteries, target the falling debris. Don't let anything reach the ground." The Devourer mothership began to break apart in Earth's orbit, its massive bulk tearing itself apart from internal explosions. Chunks of alien metal fell toward the planet like burning rain, but Earth's surface defenses were ready. Anti-aircraft batteries that had been built to fight airplanes, now fired at falling pieces of starship. The final explosion lit up the entire planet. From space, Earth looked like a second sun as the mothership's power core went critical. The blast was so bright that it was visible from Mars, where the few survivors of the outer system battles watched in amazement. When the light faded, space around Earth was empty, except for floating debris and the burned hulks of human warships. The Devourers were gone, their invasion fleet destroyed. Their mothership, nothing but scattered metal. Kim emerged from the bunker to find the sky returning to its normal blue color. The green glow of the alien conversion beam was gone, replaced by the familiar warmth of Earth's sun. He activated the beacon network one more time, but now the message was different. "This is Earth." He spoke into the transmitter, his words carrying. "Across the galaxy, we received your beacons. We heard your call." The peaceful species lit beacons of hope in their final moments. "We lit the sky on fire. The Devourers are dead. Earth stands ready." The message spread through space at the speed of light, reaching civilizations that had been hiding in fear. Within days, responses began to arrive. Some were from grateful survivors who had escaped the Devourers. Others were from new species asking for help against different threats. Captain Han Subin had survived the destruction of the Defiant, rescued by the crew of the Vengeance. She stood on the bridge of a new ship, watching Earth's first interstellar peacekeeping mission prepare for launch. The planet below still bore the scars of battle, but humanity had proven something important to the galaxy. The peaceful species had lit beacons of hope. Earth had lit the sky on fire. And now, when other civilizations sent out their desperate calls for help, they would not die alone in the darkness.